Gents, Mr. Callan here with you for one more day of Chapter 4, Lesson 10, Simplifying Algebraic Expressions. Again, please keep the following words in your mind over and over. Groups, like terms, groups, like terms. Pause if you need. Take a look at the first page of the worksheet assignment. Come on back when you're ready. Here's the second page. Pause and come back when you're ready to move on. And here are the evens. Pause when you're ready. Come on back. All right, so once again, we are looking to combine like terms. We are looking to simplify expressions because today we're going to be able to simplify so that tomorrow, heading into multi-step, 2, 3, 4-step equations. But here we go. Let's go ahead and do our assignment. I'm going to do 4 problems with you. And let's start off with problem number 1. Directions say use the distributive property to simplify. Then we're going to find our answer on the accompanying picture and we're going to color in the appropriate color. So for instance, number 1 is red. I'll use red. I'm going to rewrite this. 5x subtract 7 parentheses 2 subtract 4x. But you know, Mr. Callan, I am not a fan at all of subtraction. If we can change that to add the opposite, we can change subtract 4x to add negative 4x. Now I'm going to draw something here. You don't have to, but I do want you to notice that that 7, that's not actually $7. That's not actually 7 pluses or minuses. That's 7 groups, right? So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to draw the arrow to distribute the 7. Now picture this, all right? So we have, whoops, I don't know where that went. I'm going to just draw dot, 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 dot. 7 groups of 2. Well, 7 groups of 2 would be 14. Oh, but wait a second, Mr. Callan. It's not just 7 groups, it's the opposite. So the opposite of all those positive 2's would turn negative. That leaves us with negative 14. 7 groups of negative 4x's. Well, 7 4x's is 28 x's. But the opposite of all those subtracts, or the opposite of all those negatives, would make positives. So that's going to give us positive or an addition of 28 x's. Also notice this 5x was by itself. It's not a part of the group, so I'm just going to rewrite the positive 5x down below. At this point, we can go ahead. You can circle your variable terms. You can underline your constant terms. And some of you even, I'll use a little disappearing ink here, some of you even like to rewrite it so that the like terms are right next to each other. And that's up to you. That's going to disappear in a second. I personally will say, look, if you got 5 x's and you got 28 x's, put those together and you'll get 33 x's. Now there is nothing to combine with negative 14. I'm okay if you write that, or some of you would appreciate, instead of writing add a negative 14, you would simply write subtract 14. Either of those are acceptable. So we took that nasty expression up here, 5x subtract 7 groups of 2 minus 4x. We simplified it. No more grouping symbols. There's not 4 terms. There's really only 2 terms here. Let's go right next door. Let's take a look at number 2. Now, number 2, I'm going to draw out just because I think it's going to help me a little more. I'm seeing positive 8. So I'm going to draw a positive 8 right here. Now, there's that minus again. So I myself will change subtraction into add the opposite, subtraction to add the opposite. That just helps me. But remember, that's not 3. That's 3 groups of 6, and it's 3 groups of negative 6x's. So watch on the right side as I go ahead and copy those groups. There's 1 group, there's 2 groups, there's 3 groups. 3 groups of 6 is 18, 3 groups of 6x's, 18x's. But wait a second. We do have another opposite symbol. And the opposite of all those positive 6's, watch as I do that, I'm going to change all those positive 6's. There's negative 6, there's negative 6, there's another, and so that 18 is going to be negative. And the opposite of those negative 6x's, watch on the right, all those negative, all those subtracting x's turn into positive, turn into plus. So we have a positive 18x. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, Let me unlock this guy. Don't forget, we have those 8 positives that are by themselves. So if I were to look at this, I'm seeing 8 positives, I'm seeing 18 negatives, I'm seeing 18 x's. I'm going to go ahead and put the variable term first. We have a positive 18x. And with a little disappearing ink, I'm seeing some 0 terms. Positive 8 and negative 8 cancel out. That leaves us with negative 10. I'm going to go ahead and write plus a negative 10, although some of you would rather just write subtract 10. I would accept either of those. There's no need to write both. So look at problem number 1, look at problem number 2. How are they similar? They have grouping symbols. You got to distribute or multiply the number outside by each term in the inside, and they have that opposite symbol. So the opposite of positives turn to negatives, and the opposite of negatives turn to positives. Look at how they're different, not just the colors, but they have different numbers, of course. Number 1 had 5 x's at the front, so there's a variable term. Number 2 had 8, just a constant term of positive 8 at the front. But I hope you're seeing similarities. I hope you're seeing differences. Let's pop on down. Let's do numbers 13 and 14 now. And these are for real. These are some pretty tough stuff. 13, I'm going to rewrite it in green. So we have 4 x's here. That is a positive. I'm just going to put that to help myself. Now you see that minus 7, so I'm going to change that to add the opposite. And you see the minus 3 x's. I'm going to change that to add the opposite. And you see the minus 9. I'm going to change that to add the opposite. Now, don't start trying to combine like terms. Mr. Cowan, there's 4 x's there. Well, there's actually not negative 3 x's there because we must remember the grouping. So 7 groups of 3 and 7 groups of 3x is going to change things. 7 groups of 3 is 21. And yes, the opposite of all those positives would turn to negative. 7 groups of 3x is 21x. And the opposite of all those negative x's, the opposite of subtracting or going down, would be increasing or going up. Notice, please, the plus and negative 9 is not a part of the group. It's by itself. It's alone. I'll just copy it down. And the positive 4x back at the beginning is also by itself and not a part of the group. Here's where I can go ahead and I can combine my like terms. Where 4x's and 21x's makes 25x's. Negative 21 and negative 9 makes negative, that should be a negative 30. While, of course, some of you would write subtract 30. All right, let's take a look at 14. Look at how they're similar. Look at how they're different. 14S for yellow, but my yellow doesn't show up well. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this in black. Negative 8 plus 6 groups of negative x. There's a minus 3. I'm going to change that to adding the opposite. And 4 x's. Getting a little close to my drawing here, so I'm going to go ahead and move this for a sec. Okay. Now, that's not just 6, is it? That's 6 groups. So if you pay attention in the middle part of the drawing, I've got 1, 2, 3 negative x minus 3's, 4, 5, and 6 negative x minus 3's. Notice, though, that 6 is not an opposite symbol. So 6 negative x's, or negative 6x's, 6 negative 3's, or negative 18. We don't have to change them. None of those change to the opposites. We have a 4x off to the side. We have a negative 8 off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and underline my constant terms and circle my variable terms. And if I were to move those next to each other, I bet you would spot some 0 pairs. Positive x and negative x cancel out. Positive x and negative x. In fact, we have 4 0 pairs. What does that leave us with? That leaves us with negative or the opposite of 2 x's. Then, if I move the negative 8 by the negative 18, there are no 0 pairs. We actually just get to put all those together, leaving us with negative 26, or you guessed it, you can write it as subtract 26. So again, if I zoom out a little bit, you can rewind, you can watch again, but I want you to look at how these problems are similar and how these problems are different. Number 1, we had to take the opposite of those groups. Number 13, we had to take the opposite of those groups. Interestingly enough, those were both 7s. Number 2, we had to take the opposite of those groups. However, number 14, there was no opposite symbol outside. So those negative x's remained negative x's. Those negative 3's remain negative 3's. Put all those negative 3's together and it made negative 18. So that is a huge difference from number 14 compared to numbers 1 and 2 and 13. And yet you can see plenty of similarities. Distribute first, get rid of the grouping symbols. Be careful with your positives and negatives. The opposite of a negative is a positive. The opposite of a positive is a negative. Combine your like terms. If you have variable terms, you can put those together. If you have constant terms, you can put those together. And last but not least, please notice there is no x equals anything. We are not solving. These are not equations yet. Tomorrow, we'll get back into solving equations. So you have to be very careful with your integer skills, along with your algebra skills of distributing and combining like terms. Put those together, and that's going to be the remainder of the assignment, folks. So you may pick either the snowman or the kid dressed up in snow gear to color and to check. Every single one of these, after you complete the problem, it's going to give you a color. And if you don't find your answer, for instance, if I did not find negative 2x minus 26, then I'm going to have to go back and see if I can fix it up. That being said, negative 2x minus 26, I can see it. Well, I can't see it. It's a little fuzzy for me. I can't see it on the person. Can I see it on the snowman? Still a little fuzzy. If you'll apologize, if I'll apologize for my bad eyes. But sooner or later, you're going to be looking around. You're going to try to find one of the answers, and then you're going to color it in whatever color that they ask you to do. If you cannot find your answer, you need to go back to the problem and rework it out and pay attention to your positives and negatives and combining like terms. All right, folks, that's what I have. Take care. Do well. Let's grow. Get ready for some equations. They're coming back. See ya.